open-minded skeptic. I'm still not claiming I know the answers. There might be logical answers to all this. I don't know, but my job is to put the evidence out there, and that's what I've been doing with this, is trying to get this sort of thing out there so that people can see what there's. Another case that I love is a case we did for a show called Texas is Roswell. Again, a title that neither you or I created.
but a fun show indeed. I giggle just because of the stories that you and I have that come from Aurora, Texas.
Oh, yeah. You and I, this is a great thing. The fun thing about doing shows like this is, first off, you can become an expert on this stuff. And if you're going to research this kind of thing, I suggest to anybody go down to the places and see it. If you like UFOs, go to Roswell. If you like, if you like the Kennedy assassination, go to Dealey Plaza. Go to the places that have this stuff so you can see it, firsthand. But you and I went to Aurora, Texas, which is a very small town. Not joking, really, the sign that says "Welcome to Aurora" and "You're leaving Aurora" are really on the same post.
It's pretty much it.
It's not a big town, and the people are really sweet. We were able to interview, I think, the mayor.
The mayor of Aurora, Texas. We got.
Yeah. The story for people that don't know, just in a nutshell, is back in 1897, on April 17th.
Yeah, my birthday, Duane.
Did
you know
that?
Your
birthday, yeah. And
that was the running joke on this production. It was a big deal that it happened on my birthday. Granted, a separate year entirely, but I just thought it was great.
But we went down there, and the case was this craft had been seen. This cigar-shaped craft had been seen in, I think, 20 different states by thousands of witnesses, written about in hundreds of newspapers over the course of 7-8 months, from 1896 to 1897, and it supposedly crashed on the morning of April 17th, 1897, into Judge Proctor's windmill, or whatever it was, something like a windmill.
Mm-hmm.
The metal went down into his well, and an alien was in the ship. Supposedly, it died. It was saying that in the paper it said the pilot was not of this earth, speculating it's a Martian. Now this is interesting to me because this is several years before the Wright brothers are flying.
Yes.
And that's something, that's pretty important, is there was nothing in the air at this time. And to be written about in the newspaper. So you and I were able to go down there, and I remember we got down there the day before we were going to shoot, and I remember you and I just deciding, we got some people to give us a ride over to the cemetery.
Yeah, we were like two kids in a candy store because we've been researching this thing forever.
Yeah.
And finally, we were there in Aurora, Texas, and the cemetery was like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
And granted, it was nighttime, but I think it was a full moon that night, or quite close to it.
And there were there were candles on all these graves. You remember that?
Which was creepy.
Yeah. So you see all these little lights throughout the whole thing. It's like eyes looking at you. But we had no idea where the grave was. We didn't. And actually, the marker is gone. But we got the chance to go down there, and, everybody's been on a cemetery at night, knows it gets kind of spooky. But we got a chance to really go through there at night, and then the next day we got a chance to be there. We got a tour of the thing with, who did we interview there?
Hayden Hughes. We interviewed Hayden Hughes, which was one of the lead investigators to this case, decades ago when it resurfaced in the 1970s. And Mutual UFO Network was involved. Hayden Hughes with the International UFO Bureau, I believe was.
I can't remember what the name of what the acronym is. But
that was his organization.
He was our big interview, and then I was able to interview.
Wally Sheridan on there.
Walt Andrus.
Mm-hmm.
I drove down and interviewed him. And Walt Andrus was one of the original founders of MUFON as well. And he sat with me. A lot of the thing that people don't understand is how much fun it is to actually meet these people. And you knew a bunch of them already, but I didn't. And I had read about these guys or seen them, talking about things. But to be able to actually spend time at their houses, meet their wives, and kind of talk to people and really get an idea that these people aren't crazy people. I mean, I think that UFOs get a bad rep. I'll give you a great example. When John and I went up to, when you and I went up to Minnesota, there was a newspaper article about us. But do you remember what the headline said?
I don't recall.
The headline said, "UFO files beams down."
Oh, that's right.
To whatever town it was. And it's that kind of attitude that really makes it, people look at it kind of silly.
Yeah. It's always...
recently, the Dateline did a thing about the top 10 UFO cases, and I thought, this is going to be great. Okay, because they've done stories about the top 10 murders, top 10 blah, 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 and they've always done a really good job about it. And then they do the top 10 UFO stories, and they had Star Trek clips in there, sound effects, and I'll tell you how every news story starts on a UFO story. It always starts with an open field, there's nobody standing there, and then you see the reporter beam in.
Yeah.
Every one of them starts like that. You know, I'm here in Roswell, and you hear this, you know, it's sort of insulting to a lot of the people that really know this stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that was fun about UFO Hunters is we were able to give voice to a lot of people that really are scholars in this. I mean, the field of ufology has a lot of brilliant people in it.
It really does. You know, and I was just recently came back from the Mutual UFO Network's International Symposium, and I've talked about it and what happened on this program in the past. But I bring it up again because there was a newspaper article that was done about our event. And just, I won't say the newspaper by name because I'm not into trashing them, but it just goes to show you that they just don't take this thing seriously. And they misquoted so many different people and made us all of us, look like morons up there. Now, granted, there was a lot of good coverage as well, but it only takes one newspaper to really just kind of screw it up. And so, Duane, I wanted to ask you, as a producer coming into this and seeing all this evidence as you've been telling us in your journey that you've seen.
Right.
Do you believe that this topic is going to be ever taken seriously by the media? Or are we constantly going to see these beaming in reporters giving us the lowdown on some UFO event, and then it goes back to the newscasters in the studio that have some kind of lame joke about us? Do you think that those days will ever be done?
I interviewed a guy named Robert Collins. Robert Collins had a really good quote to me. He wrote a book called Exempt from Disclosure, and he's an expert sort of on the underground bases at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where they took the Roswell craft, supposedly, and other things. And he said he doesn't see that this being taken seriously until there's a 9/11 on this, something on the scale of 9/11 involving extraterrestrials. And I guess that kind of makes sense to me in a way that, you know, okay, that does sort of make sense to me, because unless there is some evidence out there. People say there's no evidence, and you know, okay, I would agree with everybody that there is no evidence unless you want to count the multiple scientific studies, the government studies, landing imprints, DNA, metal fragments, police officers, judges, presidents have seen things, newspaper accounts, burn marks, glowing rings, changes in soil, damaged property, forensic evidence, dead cows, animals making noise, you know, documents that come out. There's a lot of things that you could say it may not be proof, you know, but you even got physiological evidence on people. You've got temporary blindness, radiation sickness, marks on bodies, implants, missing time. Okay, so this may not be proof, but this is evidence, and I don't know until there's a big event, a big event that people can actually put their head around.
So after all this, Duane, do you consider yourself a believer?
I am an open-minded skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
My thought on this is, again, I like anybody, I want to be able to hold a piece of metal that doesn't make sense. I want to be able to, you know, shake hands like on the cover of Weekly World News with an alien. You know, I would like that. Am I going to get that? Probably not. I don't think that... you know, it's in the government's best interest to hold back on evidence. You know, in their eyes, it's easy for them to hold things back or to keep the myth, so to speak, of UFOs alive, because that way they can test a lot of things. You know, they can test a lot of things that, you know, the stealth craft we thought for years was UFO.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's in their best interest to keep us guessing. So I don't know if they're, you know, I don't know if I'm ever going to get proof. I'd love to think there is. I mean, you know, the question it's funny because people ask me one question constantly: if UFOs are real, how come they don't just land on the White House lawn?
Loaded question.
Yeah, and the two parts to this, real quick, is first off, the White House isn't the head of the world; it's just our central government. But the second part is when we start watching